Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I haven't talked to my mom for a little over 1 year now, but this is a story of my mom's lies. Growing up, my mom was always in and out of jail for stealing. The last time she was arrested was in 2015. I was 19 at the time and she always said she stole to provide for our family, but we never lived in a stable home. She would just blow money on expensive gifts and tell us we aren't poor. We have this. How many poor kids have this? As we moved from hotel to hotel growing up, I became the financially responsible child. I worked multiple jobs, got good grades, and did community service. I was able to save up $8,500 for college with multiple scholarships. During my hard work in high school, I also helped my mom with bills and paying for whatever she needed help with. When I left for college, she was arrested again and had to be dropped off in another state by my aunt for my first day of college. I asked my mom for college money and she said she would transfer the money when she got out. When she got out, it all magically disappeared. She blamed my dead grandmother for stealing my money. In 2019, I discovered multiple credit cards and an apartment late on bills were opened in my name. I cried to my mom about all of these issues and she comforted me and asked for more money. I gave her more money. I graduated with my BA and went to graduate school. I was able to be in graduate school for 1 year with my savings before I needed to take out Graduate Plus loans. I applied but was denied due to all the negative items on my credit score. My mom told me to just pay it off. I didn't. I dropped out instead. I was devastated, but I wasn't going to pay for other people's fun rides. I called all the credit companies and got the address for all the credit cards. It was my mom's address. When confronted, she broke down, saying it was my grandmother and how dare I blame her for this. She demanded an apology and didn't speak to me for a week. My grandmother died before all the credit cards were opened, and I filed a police report against my mom, and she got arrested and is currently being interrogated. To the comments asking about why I kept giving her money, it was hard. Either help with the bills or have no electricity, water, gas, or roof over mine and my brother's heads. I didn't want to be homeless again, and I didn't want my brother to suffer either. I felt like I needed to help my family because for so long I had the mentality that blood was thicker than water. I know now it's not my responsibility. I was just young and thought I was doing the best I could to provide for my family from the ages of 16 to 23. I'm 26 now. As for the credit stuff, I have had a good amount taken off till we know how things will develop with the police. Only 2 cards and 1 bill are on my credit report. This incident took place a couple of weeks ago, just before Mother's Day. I apologize in advance for the length of the story, but I will do my best to make it as clear as possible. Let me provide some background information. My mother has 4 siblings, making her the eldest at 56 years old. She's followed by Uncle Frank, 55, Aunt Melissa, 53, Aunt Laura, 48, and Aunt Carolyn, 39. To give you a better understanding, let me start from the beginning of 2004. Both Uncle Frank and Aunt Laura moved into Grandma's house while she moved out to live with her husband in his own house. Towards the end of that year, my uncle moved out, leaving behind a few $100 in unpaid utility bills. As a result, they divided the house in half. When my mother finally made the decision to leave my father, we moved into our half of the house. Mom took it upon herself to clean and set up a payment plan to settle the debts accumulated by Uncle Frank and Aunt Laura. Grandma returned to the house a year later. Over the following years, my mom, her husband, and eventually myself, once I started working, began shouldering the financial responsibilities for the house. We contributed towards renovations, improvements, and the overall maintenance of the house, even going as far as rebuilding it after a calamity struck in 2017. For years now, I've been urging Mom to have a conversation with Grandma and sort out the house deed. There are a few reasons for this. Firstly, I don't trust Uncle Frank and Aunt Laura. They have a history of taking advantage of Grandma and Mom. It's not fair or wise for us to invest so much time and money in a house that her siblings will likely try to sell as soon as Grandma passes away. If Grandma isn't willing to address this issue, it's better for us to know sooner and make a down payment on another property, something that Mom can be sure will be truly hers. Finally, after years of recovering from the 2017 event, we managed to save enough money. Grandma was pleased with the amount we offered her to transfer the deed while maintaining the arrangement as it is. We continued to cover the bills, her groceries, medications, and so on. Grandma informed my aunts and uncles about our plan. Aunt Melissa and Aunt Carolyn had no objections, as they both have their own houses and are happy that my mom is taking care of the house and Grandma. However, Aunt Laura was furious and began calling everyone in the family, stopping on the phone and accusing Mom of being a heartless individual who deceived Grandma into evicting her from the house. Truth is, Aunt Laura is an extremely challenging person. She has had a constant stream of men coming to the house and introducing them to her sons. She spent a couple of years in jail for grand larceny, if I remember correctly, and somehow managed to place the blame for the fallout and consequences on Grandma and us, claiming that we didn't take proper care of her affairs. Aunt Laura has always been physically and verbally abusive towards her sons and partners. For instance, I remember one incident where she called her 6-year-old son every imaginable name at 2 a.m. simply because he woke up and found her smoking in the backyard. Grandma was growing wary of Aunt Laura, consistently dumping her little child on Grandma early in the morning. After all, Grandma is 73 years old, dealing with health issues, and she gets tired very easily. So she finally had a talk with Aunt Laura, pointing out that at 48 years old, she has been living rent-free in Grandma's house for 20 years, and it's high time she found a job and moved on. After Aunt Laura's initial dramatic accusations claiming that Mom stole the house and manipulated Grandma, she suddenly announced that her 23-year-old son had asked her to move in with him to take care of his pregnant wife. I genuinely feel sorry for that girl. She took some of her belongings but left behind a collection of broken furniture and boxes. Nevertheless, we began the cleaning process. Aunt Laura's portion of the house was an absolute mess. Everything was damaged and dirty, from the floors to the walls to the lighting fixtures. The presence of cockroaches and mice added to the infestation. Furthermore, we discovered buckets filled with waste in the bedrooms and various unsightly stains on the walls. It took us a couple of weeks to thoroughly clean, repaint, and repair everything. This brings us to the day of the most recent incident. All three of my aunts, Aunt Melissa, Laura, and Carolyn, visited Grandma with her children on a Saturday before Mother's Day. Grandma, being a Jehovah's Witness, doesn't celebrate holidays with us sinners. Aunt Laura began making comments about how clean and pleasant the place looked. She kept dropping hints until she finally outright told Grandma, "Half of what you have should be enough for my share, or I can just move back in." Grandma was taken aback and asked her to clarify what she meant by her share. Aunt Laura proceeded to assert that she is entitled to a portion of the house because it's her inheritance and she has lived there for so long, among other reasons. This upset Grandma greatly, and my other aunts intervened, taking Aunt Laura away to relieve Grandma of the stress. However, Aunt Laura left in anger and started calling people once again. I know this because she even called my father, crying and claiming that Mom and Grandma were making her homeless. She even mentioned the possibility of staying with him since he lives alone. My sister happened to be on speakerphone with him while he got Mom's side of what had happened. Aunt Laura's deceitful crocodile tears and disruptive behavior within the family have reached the point where Grandma made a promise to give her a few $1,000s. However, there is a condition attached to it. Aunt Laura must provide quotes and evidence that she intends to use the money for housing or to start a business. This precaution is necessary because Aunt Laura cannot be trusted with any amount of money. Since her departure, there has been a remarkable sense of peace. Any financial burden of the bills has significantly decreased. Hopefully, this will mark the end of our interactions with her. I was walking down the streets one day with my little boy in tow after I picked him up from school. We were having fun chatting a little bit about what he took in school that day, how his day went overall, and cute stuff like that. Across from us, I saw another mother walking with her son next to her as well. He was clearly throwing a fit, and at some point he stopped and started punching her leg. It looked like he wanted her to hand him something and she was just hesitant about it. But eventually she relented, put her hand into her purse, grabbed what he was screaming for and handed it to him. You'd think it was some candy he wanted to eat or a toy he wanted to play with, but no. It was nothing but a stun gun. A real electric stun gun. Once he took it from her, he stopped crying instantly. Then he started turning it on and off as the scary sound of it grabbed the attention of the people walking by. I walked up to her and told her how she can let a child play with a dangerous weapon like that, how it's very irresponsible of her, and that he could easily hurt himself and practically everyone around him. But she didn't like that, started yelling at me how it's none of my business what she gives to her child to play with, and that it's for his own good, that she was basically teaching him self-defense. I mean, yeah, it's okay to teach your 7-year-old kid self-defense at this age, but that happens by enlisting him in some martial arts class of some sort, not handing him a taser in public so that he could swing around and threaten other people with. When she noticed that people started to gather around and that literally all of them took my side and started criticizing her, she tried to grab the stun gun from her Brat and put it back into her purse. At that point, I thought to myself, finally, a Karen that has a few brain cells to know that de-escalating in a situation like this is actually a good option. But of course, her entitled brat that was raised to always get what he wanted refused to hand it back to her, screamed at her when she tried again, then when she reached for a third time, he directed it towards her leg and turned it on, shocking her from head to toe and sending her to the ground right after. All the people that gathered around earlier took a step back when they saw that happen, and some of them tried to lure the kid into dropping the stun gun to the ground, but to no avail. Clearly, the boy knew exactly what he was carrying. Cops were called and EMTs followed in tow. They took the lady on the stretcher and with a little stunt of theirs managed to strip the taser out of that brat's hand. They took him in their car and off they went. I am not entirely sure what happened after to the both of them, but seriously, what kind of mother hands her little kid a freaking stun gun? But hey, if only karma was there every single time someone does a stupid thing to instantly punish him for it, like I just witnessed, things would have been a whole lot different, I imagine. Nobody likes a lunch thief, and I had one of the most aggressive at my office. There were rumors for a few months leading up to the inciting incident of someone going around and taking people's lunches. Just about every day, someone would complain that their lunch was missing. It even happened to me once or twice, but I figured, hey, it's a big office. Few people are probably just careless and grab the wrong lunch and are too embarrassed to bring it back, or someone else packs their lunch and they don't know what's in there, so it's not obvious they have the wrong one or whatever. Most people just brought down bags with their names on them anyway, or identical Rubbermaid Tupperware with a little piece of labeled tape on the side. It was easy enough to mix it up. I had accidentally grabbed the wrong lunch once or twice, but I noticed before I got it open. I thought I was just more careful or even just not as busy as some other people in the building. However, other people weren't as forgiving. A quorum made complaints to HR. They were blown off. Personally, at the time, I thought it was all much ado about nothing. But then it began. My wife enrolled in a French cooking class online. And just about every day I was bringing fancy gourmand leftovers in for lunch. You'd think I was picking up a to-go bag from a Michelin-starred bistro on the way in each morning. She really threw herself into the coursework. There were no problems for about 2 weeks, maybe 3, until one day my lunch went missing. Considering what delicacies I had to look forward to, I was pretty miffed. But I did a once-over around the break room and didn't see anyone eating my lunch. So I figured someone grabbed my bag by accident earlier. Saw how good things looked and realizing it was their lucky day, they didn't bring it back to the fridge. I wrote the mysterious stranger off as a jerk, but accepted the loss and looked forward to dinner that night instead. The next day, I write my name on my lunch in extra bold lettering, jam the bag into the back of the fridge, and feel peace of mind. I get there come break time. But nope, it's gone. I was pretty upset, but I figured it was a stroke of bad luck and left it at that. What else could I do? However, on the third day, out of an abundance of caution, I kept my lunch at my desk. A pain, but I had to eat it fairly early in the day to avoid spoilage. But at least I'd know where it was. I got up to take care of some business down the hall. When I came back, yep, my lunch was gone. Unfortunately, that didn't help me narrow it down much at all because my desk is centrally located, so everyone's constantly passing by. At that point, there was no possibility of the theft being arbitrary, so I approached HR and filed a complaint. The response, practically verbatim, was, "Employees' lunches are their personal property, and the company is not responsible for lost or stolen personal items." The following day, my wife packed a cream paste soup that really had to be refrigerated. I was passing by the break room to check on my lunch practically every 5 minutes. Somehow, it still managed to disappear. I was irate at this point and returned to HR, which really blew my top. The best they could do was send a memo around about remembering to check the name on your lunch when you remove it from the fridge. But they made it very clear that it was a routine memo and in no way related to their complaints, which were not under their jurisdiction. So it was not an admission of responsibility because my lunch was my own personal problem. The only suitable alternative to packing a lunch available in a building are these wretched shrink-wrapped ham and cheese sandwiches from a vending machine. They have been marinating in the heat for God knows how long, and the bread is as stale as a corkboard. The meat is rancid and there is gluey mayo smushed into the center. It's a relic of the old office tenants, I'm pretty sure. I vented daily to my wife, but her only idea was to start bringing a regular sandwich and apple again to dissuade the thief and get him to move on to other lunches. So, determined to prevent this low-life scum from downgrading the quality of my lunch, I hatched an elaborate plan. Then, the pandemic hit, and I forgot all about this whole saga. I worked remotely for months and months, then we returned. And after all that had happened globally, this was the last thing on my mind. But I got to the break room the first day back, frustrated from having to wear a button-up pin tie after months of working in pajamas, sore from my desk chair and exhausted from small talk, only to find my lunch was gone. This was a particularly sore point because my wife and I divorced between my last lunch at work and the present one, so I did not appreciate being reminded of any past threads involving her. I pretty much flew into a blind rage at that point, especially seeing that stupid worthless memo about checking the lunch bag names posted in the break room. I felt so helpless, so hungry, and so alone as it was me and my lunch against the world. I stormed out and was determined to return the next day with a plan. So I came in the following day with an empty lunch bag, and I checked closely to be sure no one was watching, and I switched the contents of the HR person lunch bag into my bag. So now their lunch appears to be my lunch. They had packed a regular brown bag, so I just discarded that and I left and I waited. I knew this was a pretty big gamble because it was contingent on the theory that the thief was avoiding me while having lunch, but not wary of anyone else. so I would eat out in the open if there were no risk of bumping into me. So I made a big show of going around the office and announcing that I was headed out for a meeting and I wouldn't be back until at least 3 p.m. I even went to the trouble of moving my car out of the lot to a space 2 streets over. I then sat in my car and worked remotely for several hours before sneaking into the building up the back staircase. I then sat in a stairwell just outside the break room where you can hear chatter that can't be seen. And after about 20 to 30 minutes of waiting, I heard it. The sweetest sound I'll ever hear in the office. HR yelling, "What the heck, Kyle? That's my lunch." The lunch thief says, "Nah, it's not your name on the bag. Give me that." I'm assuming she grabs her bag and sees my name. She says, "Yeah, let's head to my office for a chat." The HR rep later called me in as well and said they were aware of my break room hijinks, but it was obvious that the point still came across loud and clear. They warned me that it was a violation of policy to move another employee's lunch. It took every ounce of self-control for me to keep from retorting. I thought our lunches were our personal property and the company was not responsible for them being lost or stolen. They informed me that they had located the thief and things would be handled accordingly. But better than whatever write-up they might be able to issue Kyle, his revelation as a lunch thief occurred in front of the whole break room. So word quickly spread as to who had been stealing everyone's lunches earlier last year, and he is now the office pariah. He was in line for a promotion. The promotion is indefinitely off the table, and I also earned brownie points for exposing him. Though, more than I'm satisfied with is being attributed to HR. At the end of the day though, I didn't do this for this credit or even the sweet, sweet revenge. I did it to get my lunch back.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.